Hi, welcome to Earplay's First Mondays program, May 3rd, 2021. And I'm Ellen Ruth Rose, violist and artistic coordinator of Earplay, and I'm going to have a conversation with composer Linda Bouchard. So, Linda, thank you so much for talking with me.
Well, thanks for having me. This is really nice.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the origins of Second Survival, of the piece and the title?
Yes. Well, I was reading my notes this morning from 2009. The original version of the work was called Systematic Survival.
Mhm.
So a piece composed like 13 years ago. And I'm kind of amazed because when I wrote that piece, it was about the wonder I felt at our ability to endure and to persevere in the face of challenges. And in the process, to create unlikely systems to sustain ourselves through the difficulties. And over the past 14 months of ordeal with this brutal pandemic, how precious it is to reflect on this. And
Mhm.
of course, I mean, the human race has been traversing extreme challenges forever. Maybe it's just the basic fact of life. And in the process, humans create these systems, and it helps us organize us as a society, as a group. It helps us go through hardship. And with these systems, we get some strength, more psychological, emotional, spiritual, and somehow we prevail, we survive. So the works Systematic Survival and Second Survival, both works, are musical reflection on this very quiet strength that we have to endure difficulties. And the word second survival, it's kind of like a pun in a way, or a sort of contradiction maybe, because if we survive, it somehow implies a kind of a second chance.
Mhm.
There is an implicit transformation. And this is what happens in the piece.
What I appreciate about both listening and playing the piece is that there are these structures in the piece, but yet they kind of subtly change, but you're not aware so much of them as being structures and as kind of devotional impulses or sort of little safety gestures that we do to keep ourselves sane.
Exactly. And you talk about the form and the subtle way that things change. I think that when I look back, I think that most of my music is about variation. It's not about development. I don't try to write music and transform it and change it and manipulate it until it's become something else. I like to just keep trying to make variations with it. And through the variations, it's as if we're looking at something from all these different angles, like a diamond, that
Mhm.
reflects a different image because of the reflection. So this is very much what happens in this piece, for sure. A lot of variations.
Hmm. Well, can you tell me how you arrived at the specific prepared piano sounds? They're quite they're slightly percussive, they're resonant, and they fit very well with the string effects, although they're also separate from that. So they sort of traverse a lot of layers.
Yes, I decided to use, this versional, if I can say that, from the 20th century. John Cage uses of pieces of rubber in between the strings that creates a muted sound. So it is still resonant because we still hear the wood of the piano resonating with harmonics, but we don't hear the upper harmonics. We just
Mhm.
hear the lower one. And yes, so those are in the opening, when we first start the piece, the piano is playing those muted sounds while you are playing. And it is like a commentary that's kind of oblivious to what this is, something that's prevailing above or beside or under what the strings are talking about.
Right, and then that becomes the kind of undercurrent with the ricochets and the pizzicati
That's
of
right.
the plucked notes of the strings later on in the piece. They kind of join in that, playing that role.
Yes,
Another.
and there's a kind of playfulness that happens at that moment. There's a
Mhm.
kind of lightness, something shifted, something came about. And, you know, all of this was present in the material of the opening. It's just that then we reveal it with rhythm.
Right, right. One other thing that strikes me about this piece that creates a lot of richness is just your color palette. There's a very rich color palette, even though there are only 6 instruments. And I think part of it is not only the prepared piano sounds and the fact that the string instruments are sometimes plucking, sometimes ricocheting, you know, doing different bow sounds, but your choice of woodwinds, you've got a bass clarinet and an alto flute in there. And can you just talk about the colors of those two wind instruments and how that, you know, can fit into the mix?
Yeah, well, I liked the darkness
Mm-hmm.
of that pure alto flute with bass clarinet. It was a kind of like a shadow color, you know, it was not an in your face kind of color. So for me, or the structure of a piece, the organization of a piece, the concept of a piece starts by thinking, what are the colors? What are the timbres? What are the textures that I can create with those people? Where is there an intersection where the sound of this instrument with that instrument becomes something else? And where do I have the sound of these instruments against those instruments retain their identity? So it's always a question of what can be one sound made of many, and what can many sounds still keep their identity. And it is this interplay for me that I work with when I compose a piece before I do anything else. And I will spend a long time writing endless sketches just playing with these concepts. That's where my piece starts. And then I'll think about the rest, but that's my homework when I start a piece.
Part of our work as working performers is, you know, just to read the score, to play out what the score says and not think that much about it. I mean, in a certain sense. And in your music, I mean, in chamber music, one digs a little deeper anyhow, but in your music, there's really so many questions that are opened up in the realm of how should I sound? Okay, I have a piano, it's marked soft, and then I have a ricochet. I'm supposed to bounce the bow. But what is it really supposed to sound like? And I really enjoy interpreting your scores. And I think that the care that you put in choosing the colors and the ranges that we play in give so many clues as to what the character of something is.
I do spend a lot of time tediously writing my scores, but ultimately the music comes alive in the hands of performers. So the music written score is just a map. It is not the destination, and it's never been for me. The musicians are what creates the alchemy, the magic.